I think I can be emotionally a little bit more dispassionate. And that's why when you say startups, I don't know what you mean by startups, because if you have a desire to build a business, go ahead and build a business.
Sandeep, I'm meeting you after your IPO. You remember we spoke
right.
on the first day.
That's right.
How has it been?
The IPO has not fundamentally changed anything for us. I think we continue to be the same company that we were before the IPO and after the IPO. We are all the same people with same aspirations. But it's good that our company is public. Our customers have a better way to scrutinize us as a company. Our employees have, we've delivered a sense of belief to people who've built Delhivery, that the promises made to them are now liquid. We have a currency for acquisitions in a market which is getting tricky. And we have 6,000 crores of cash going into a really, really tough market. Very few companies have that much of cash going into a market environment that we're going into. So I think foundations are very strong. Business continues to be as active as it was before. So all in all, I guess I can only say that it's great. We've really nothing to complain about.
Take us through the fundamentals of building a company like Delhivery, because last year there was so many, there was so much of noise and so many news and headlines around IPOs and startups going for IPOs. They were good, bad, but mostly somber. And I always thought Delhivery had fundamentally very strong numbers, model, while when you went for IPO, and that stood the test of time with your listing. Tell us, what does it take to build a company which is not getting affected by the noise?
One has to hand over, one has to tip their hat to entrepreneurs. It is not an easy thing to be an entrepreneur. I'm a professional manager in this company, as you know. I've been there for a long time, and
we'll come to that also.
But I'm not one of the founders, and I've said that before. You have to, tip your hat to founders who are in their 20s and 30s, who actually are going out and taking this large risk of trying to build a company. It's not an easy thing to do. That's brave. Some of them will be successful, some of them will not be. So first and foremost, people should not get discouraged from building businesses. What's happening in the market today, IPOs happen, don't happen, that should not discourage people from building businesses. If you have a desire to build a business, go ahead and build a business. But build a business for the right reasons. I think there's a difference between building a business for valuation as an end game and actually building a business because you want to solve a problem, because you have an idea, because you have a passion and you want to build something. And as long as the business is being built for fundamental reasons, the IPO, the valuation is an outcome. The IPO is nothing but just it's a capital market event. There are large companies today in this country that are still private. If you look at, all of us go and get blood tests, and we've got vaccines and all kinds of stuff. And the guys who manufacture syringes, and they manufacture that's a private company. It's one of the largest manufacturers of syringe in the world, and it's a private company. Extremely successful. Going public is not necessarily the end game for a company. It is just a capital market event. Yeah. It's a way of actually generating resources. It's a way of getting public scrutiny, as I said earlier, and it's an acquisition currency, and also a way of actually rewarding your employees. But if it's a closely held company where the promoter owns 70-80% of the company, it's well capitalized, it's a high margin business, maybe the company doesn't want to go public. Maybe it wants to stay private.
Sandeep, I want to ask you, how do you build sustainable, high growing, high impact business?
I think for high growth to happen, there has to be high market opportunity. So that addressable market comes back into play, right? Because how are you going to grow if the market size is 1,000 crores and you are a 500 crore company? Well, your headroom is only. So, you have to, if you're on a 20-floor building, you have to make sure you're starting at the ground floor. So there's enough headroom for you to rise up to, right? So that's very, very important on high growth. growth without profitability is not going to be sustainable, right? So you can't grow at all costs, and I think that is something that that people have to understand. So in our playbook, I guess the third thing for our playbook is we're always looking for how are we differentiating versus others. How are we generating alpha? And so I think that becomes quite important, because if you're just doing another cookie cutter product, then it's a question of who's shouting the loudest. And maybe customers will see you and they'll come to you, and customers are very fickle, by the way. So B2B customers, B2C customers, everybody is very fickle. So unless and until you actually have a defensible moat, you're not going to get there. And the market has to value that defensible moat, not what I think. I think this is great because I package it in purple fabric. Well, that's not maybe what the customers don't want, or you might think is great, the customers don't. So I think that growth requires a large enough market. It requires a defensible moat. What is your differentiation? It could be service level. It could be how you interact with customers. It could be in the product. It may not always be in price. I've been watching this ad on TV of a paint company. That is, that's an industry where suddenly there have been many new entrants, right? These are large companies. But it's very interesting that you can learn a lot by watching a company's advertising. They're trying to sell a premium product. And I think they've got Dhoni as in the ad campaign, where they say, I think that their tagline is Jaisa performance, Vaisi price. And when you say Jaisa performance, Vaisi price, it cannot be come price and come performance. Yeah. They're talking about high performance and high price. So they're sort of linking that. Their differentiation is that somehow they're trying to convince customers that their performance is going to be better. They're going to price that out. They're not trying to do, let me give you high performance and let me compete in the market by just going a little bit lower. And a lot of people get stuck on that. So I think your growth has to be built around your defensible moat, rather than just a pure pricing strategy, or I can scream the loudest, or I'll have a sales force which is much better than other people. Those are not going to give you high growth businesses.
I want to ask you, how do you guys, because you've talked about it, and in our last conversation also you talked about that we're not building today, we're building for many, many, many years.
If you're building a business because you're passionate about the problem, and you know that I'm going to do this for 10 years, or I'm going to, if you look at our founders, right? Look at Sahil. He's 38 years old. He's been running this business now for 11 years. So he started really young. He started at 26 to 27. He started building this business out. I don't think his passion today is any less than it was when he was 27. I think he expects to run this company till he's 60 years old, or maybe longer, with the help of professionals. He hasn't run out of energy. He hasn't got bored, because there's a macro problem, and he's finding new problems to deal within it every single day. Basically the founders don't have a desire to retire from this business. They're still running this business. And if you look at the core management team, whether it's Ajit, our CEO, Amit, our CFO, or me, we've been around for a long time in this business. None of us is trying to run away and do something else. IPOs happened, let's take our cash and run away. Because we really still want to continue building what we have. And when we look at this business and say, oh wow, we did 7,000 crores last year, and we look at the market and say, this is going to be a 30,000 crore business or 50,000 crore business. There's plenty for us to do. Yeah. So then it becomes no longer about what happens this quarter or this year, it becomes what happens in this decade. Right? That's the conversation we are starting to have. And the mistake happens is when you actually start thinking about, okay, when will I get my $1 billion in value? When will I get my $2 billion in value? Because then in your mind, you're starting to spend that cash. And that becomes a problem. That is an outcome. That cannot be a going in metric.
So basically what I hear you say is that you build institutions and you build long-term businesses when you don't optimize for the short term. But it's hard. It's hard, especially if you're coming from middle class India, you're building a business, you want to also make money.
Yeah, I think you will make money. I think that is, making money is an outcome of building that business. Yeah. The difference between the two, and maybe it's hard, maybe it's tempting, but the chances are, if you're building an institution, you'll actually also make more money. Yeah. So if that's what you want, then the success mantra lies in building the institution.
Yeah. So think long term.
Think long term, yeah. Think long term. Don't think about who's going to acquire me in 3 years or 5 years time. Yeah. Think about who you can acquire in 3 years.
So basically think that if you're starting up, think 10 years at least.
Yeah, think at least 10 years.
At least, like the minimum is 10 years.
And at the end of 10 years, if you are the acquirer rather than the acquiree, chances are you will win more.
Yeah. Difficult for young entrepreneurs, for everyone to think this way, but yes, the recipe for success is written like this.
Absolutely.
Sandeep, I want to ask you, of course I have to say I find you extremely articulate, sharp, smart. When do founders get professionals like you? Because I'm seeing, I have to go and say, I have to go on record and say, I saw that in Flipkart with Kalyan coming and that, the work that he's done. And then I see you in Delhivery. How do, it requires a lot of maturity also on the founder's part. But when should they start thinking about getting professionals like you? What excites you to be here?
The journey itself has to be exciting for me. Financial rewards were great even in consulting. Yeah. And it's a very fulfilling job and you learn a lot. The chance to actually apply that in the real world, where you are not actually giving advice but actually executing, that was a great opportunity. And when you saw the fundamentals of delivery, when I joined Delhivery, we were 200 crores in revenue. I think we'd just done a Series C round, and I think we were sort of pre-money valuation of some 250 odd million or whatever, 7 years ago. Now, at that point, when you looked at the opportunity, that all the things I've said about market opportunity and large addressable market, is there a real moat? Those things were actually true about this business. And as a consultant, that analytical mind of mine, actually, I evaluated the business from those aspects. And it fit all that, right? So that was great. And then I think the founders, and credit goes to them, have made it sustainable and exciting, right? Because they've given me the opportunity to express myself. They've given me the room to do what I want to do. They've given me a lot of respect. And they've given me one of the senior most positions in the organization, right? And I co-run the business with them now. And we work together rather than for each other. So I think it's as much the founders, it's not just about getting the professionals. It's how do you actually use the professionals? How do you take advantage of what the professional is going to bring? And I think what the founders of Delhivery have been able to do is that, which is really let the professional do his or her job and collaborate with that person very effectively. And where the professionals have not been successful, that may not have happened.
No, I give a lot to the maturity of the founders of Delhivery. And it's very rare, right? Like I've been tracking this space for the last 14 years, so there are very few examples like this.
Well, that's true look at Google.
Yeah.
Right? Or, Microsoft did it very, very early.
Yeah. But in India, we don't see it still.
Yeah, but, you have, look at Marico, for example. Saugata, who's on our board, has been the CEO of that company for a very, very long time. It's professionally run. So there are great examples, even in India, of companies that have done it. You talked about Flipkart. There are companies that actually have done it. And I don't think there is anything like too early to get a professional. But getting a professional does not mean that the founder steps off in an early stage of the company, right? I think the founder has to bring the professional in because they feel like they can collaborate with that person to build the business.
What is the strength that you bring? Because you are not the founder. Strength, of course, you bring a lot of strength, and I'm sure there are a lot of things. But just because you're not the founder, what's that extra that you bring?
I think I can be emotionally a little bit more dispassionate, right?
Yeah. That's a very, very amazing answer. Yeah,
right? Because it's like, I don't know if it's the right thing to say. I think you have to ask a founder rather than me again. But I think when a child is sick, the parent is going to think differently than the doctor is. Or at every stage of the upbringing, the professional help, whether it's a teacher in school when the child is growing or a coach in sport, is going to think differently than how the parent is going to think. Yeah. An extremely capable parent, mind you. So I think putting those two heads together, the parent's head and the professional coach's head, makes the child a better athlete or more successful or recover well from illness faster. So I think that's the difference. Yeah.
Last 2 months have been brutal when it comes to the layoffs and a lot of conversation happening around how employees are being treated. I think this happens sporadically. I've seen cycles and then it again becomes quiet. And then again the era comes that ye goodies mil rahe office mein, ye ho raha hai, wo ho raha hai. But I think culture is beyond this, and culture is how, again, as you were saying, lasting institutions are built. How are you looking at the culture within delivery?
In some ways, we don't discuss culture a lot because many organizations, when they talk about culture, they put pamphlets up that we are customer friendly and we are employee friendly. I'd like to meet a company that actually goes and writes exactly the opposites on the wall, right? I've never seen a cultural statement which is like, they all look the same.
Yeah.
So we've said, we are not going to write one. Our culture is what it is. Our culture is that we are having fun building this business. It's a real business. Everybody gets their hands dirty. Everybody rolls up their sleeve. It doesn't matter whether it's the CEO or the guy who's going and delivering the package to the customer. We go about doing stuff. What we provide people is a platform to build their careers. Just because I might like Diet Coke and I start offering it in the office, everybody else may not like it. That is not my job, right? Yeah. So those are not the goodies that we care about. What we care about in terms of goodies is we'll give you a problem to solve every day. Or you are dealing with something which is important every single day. And you do well, there's no way that if you are doing well and you're adding massive amounts of value, the company will want you to leave or will not go out of its way to retain you and will not give you success. So you drive your own success because if you perform well, the company will look after you because it's the company's interest to look after you. That's our culture. And in order to be successful, if you have to collaborate with other people, that is not a requirement. Teamwork is not culture. If you want to be successful in your career, you have to do teamwork. It's a selfish activity, right? Yeah. So if you need to be good at teamwork, be good at teamwork. If you need to work cross-functionally, go ahead and work cross-functionally. Nobody is stopping you from anything in this company. There is no enforced hierarchy. None of that stuff exists. Core thing is, we'll give you a problem every single day. Go and solve that problem. And the more you solve, the more you learn, the harder and the bigger problems you can solve. But there's no inherent messaging around culture in the entire organization. What we have done though is our stock ownership plan goes down very deep, goes down multiple levels. So obviously everybody at the CXO level and then the VPs and senior directors and senior managers and managers, sometimes even associates and sometimes even frontline guys. So a stock ownership plan goes down very deep. And when you do that, you've created a large number of shareholders within the company. And we communicate to them that now
India's story seems to be, there are a lot of news, information and voices saying that it's slowed down and e-commerce has slowed down. Things are slowing down across the world and for us in India. I want to get a sense from you and on this whole narrative that we hear that India only has 60 million users.
I'm extremely, extremely optimistic on India. I think there are very few parts of the world that are as dynamic and as vibrant as India is today from a business point of view. We have very, very large economy. Maybe we will not grow at 8.5% this year, maybe we'll grow at 5%. But we're growing at 5%. Our growth will be larger than the GDPs, combined GDPs of many, many countries. When you look at Europe, when you look at Japan, when you look at North America, when you look at large parts of the world and you look at growth in India, we are clearly still in a growth phase. 5%, 6%, 7% is still growth. We have inflation. At the end of the day, you live your life in nominal terms, not in real terms. We pay nominal GDP, we earn nominal, we pay nominal. So if you add inflation on that, we're talking about double-digit growth, right, in nominal terms. That's not something to be scoffed at, So we are still a very, very high growth country. And then we do have a large population. and that large population has a lot of aspirations.
Yeah.
And if you combine that with some of the work that the government is doing in terms of reforms and in terms of infrastructure, when you add all that up, the prospects are amazing. And that's why I think I like to watch these companies in the MSME exchange. I like to, when I travel out for work and you go and see how development is actually going down to small towns.
Yeah.
I was recently, 2 months ago, I was in Sri Ganganagar.
Sri
Ganganagar, which
Ganganagar.
is the border of Punjab and Rajasthan, almost near the international border.
Huh.
It's a farming town, but it's like a city, right? So and people are consuming everything there. So when you see development, it's really starting to go down to tier 2, tier 3 in India right now.
You see that?
I see that.
You will have the vantage point of.
Well, if you look at e-commerce, it's growing across the country, tier 2, tier 3, everywhere, right? And if you look at tier 2, tier 3, the endless aisle that e-commerce offers to them is very attractive because they don't necessarily not want the same pair of shoes that we are wearing in Delhi. They want the latest fashion. The ticket size might be small, but they want the latest thing, and which is not necessarily available in that store, or there's limited quantity available in that store there. So e-commerce suddenly makes that available to them. So I think I'm very, very bullish on what's going to happen in this country over the next 5, 6, 7 years.
So basically you are saying that 60 million might not be the right number. It might be a lot more.
We have delivered 1.5 billion parcels in the last 11 years. Surely we've delivered to more than 60 million people.
Are you looking at now, especially in today's market, acquiring startups?
M&A is a key part of our strategy. We will do both organic growth as well as inorganic growth. I think at the IPO itself, we very clearly set aside 1,000 crores, 25% of what we raised as primary proceeds for acquisitions.
Okay.
We also at that point still had 2,500 crores plus left from before. So we had a large corpus of cash available to do M&A activities. And our stock can also be used for M&A once so M&A is clearly going to be part of what we will do. And I think what we have done is we've done a few different types of M&A, right? We've done a very, very large deal with Spot On, which is the largest deal in the logistics space for some time. And I think what we've displayed by that is that we have both the desire as well as the ability to make something like that happen. Then we've done this partnership with FedEx, which is somewhat different. It's cross-border in nature. Yeah. We've gone and invested in the largest automation manufacturer in the country. And then we tend to buy some smaller technology focused companies. So M&A is going to be there. It's going to be an important part. Now, what M&A is a question mark. Because I think we are not a company that's just going to do M&A for the heck of doing M&A just because we've got the money there. It has to make sense for us. Our organic growth is reasonably high already. So it has to really make sense for us. So I think there are 2-3 types of M&A that we will look at. I think we will continue to look at businesses in the B2B space primarily. We might look at B2C space, but it's primarily will be B2B space.
B2C में जैसे?
B2B में. B2C में पता नहीं कि हमारे लिए कुछ है नहीं वैसे. Because everybody is like, we only have our close peers. हमारे को कोई फायदा नहीं है. There's no real value.
So no B2C.
But it's primarily going to be B2B. In the B2B space, we will look at companies in part truckload. We'll look at companies in supply chain services. So those kind of businesses we'll look at. They might be specifically in an industry expertise. They might be a regional specialist. So those businesses we'll look at. And we'll look at companies in technology where we're already building a technology of some kind in supply chain or something. And if somebody's already built it or is building it, that's a great opportunity to actually help turbocharge their ideas and bring them in. And then we can shorten the time of what we have to do. So some of those, like we've done with things like Road Piper and TRI Robotics in the US, and those kind of things we will do. We will not go and do private equity style or venture capital style investing. We will not go take minority stakes in businesses that actually have nothing to do with us. We're not going to do that at all. Our preference always is to take majority stake. And that's why when you say startups, I don't know what you mean by startups, because it has to be something core to our business. Chances are they will be in technology side of the business, because there's no reason for me to go buy another B2C startup. I don't get any value out of that. Anything that we need to do on B2C supply chain, delivery can do on its own anyway. So we'll be selective, but it'll be a key part of our growth.
I just wanted as many categories from you because there'll be a lot of companies. If we were talking 6 months, I wouldn't ask this question, but right now it becomes an important question.
Well, if there's a reasonable sized business and supply chain that actually is out in the market having a conversation, chances are they're talking to us already.
And do you see a lot more in the last few months?
See, I think, in many, I don't know whether, there is this whole perceived slowdown in the market, et cetera. As individual players, in at least logistics, people may not feel it that much.
Logistics is a very good indicator of the health of the economy and how it is doing. Give us a sense of logistics as of today in India and logistic tech as of today in India.
Logistic tech and logistics are very different. I think logistics, you would imagine that it's a bellwether of the economy. Yes and no. I think if we were a more consolidated logistics industry in the country, I think it would be a very good example, very good bellwether of India, because it's so fragmented.
Yeah.
Because GST is only 5 years old, and the economy is still growing at 6-7%. Our industry has not faced any shrinkage in that sense. Fuel has gone up. A lot of fuel cost actually gets passed on to the customers. But while fuel has gone up, road network has become amazingly, it has become a lot better than it was before. So they're trading off. People are moving from Bharat 4 to Bharat 6. There's a trade-off. It gets more fuel efficient. So there's a trade-off in the industry that is potentially addressing some of the challenges that are the headwinds that are coming from that as well. So I don't know whether we are actually a really good bellwether at this point of time of a slowdown in the economy. I don't think our industry has really faced a slowdown in any sense.
Sandeep, what are you doing as a company and of course now as a listed and successful company, how are you thinking about sustainability? How are you thinking about ESG?
No, very seriously actually. In all aspects of ESG. We are, let's look at it from 3 different lenses. Diversity and governance. It's extremely important. I think our industry has predominantly been dominated by men. And we've been actively trying to change that. I think we still need to work at the senior most and the leadership levels of the organization and bring more women folk in there. But across the organization, because we are so tech driven, there's a lot of opportunity for female colleagues to be working across the organization. So there's been an active move towards trying to increase diversity within the organization. That's one thing that we've been working on, even at the board level, right? We've talked about it even in the results call. We have, as of now, 1 woman board member, and we had promised that we were going to bring another person on, and which we will hopefully.
I've done the homework, but who is she? What's her name?
Kalpana Maraparia is on our board, and we've been very clear that we want at least 1 more woman on director, and I think we are we'll do that soon, and that has been a stated goal. So we want diversity to start right at the board level and then go down. That's important for us. And I think we can create that. I think we can have people in supervisory roles across, even frontline supervisory roles. There's no reason why we can't have, and then we work across 18,000 pin codes. So not only will we drive diversity at the corporate level, but we'll drive it across the country, right? We'll continue to drive employment opportunity across the country. Small entrepreneurs, we'll continue to focus on that, making them, how do you get somebody in Andaman Nicobar Islands to set up a small logistics business for us, or in the Northeast, or in Kutch, or wherever else. So really push that development that we are experiencing down out. So that's something we're doing it, because the fact that we operate in 18,000 pin codes at scale, that's happening automatically, right? We're creating opportunities everywhere. We're hiring engineers everywhere because we have little hubs everywhere. So there's an engineer required. So that's happening. And on governance, we take governance very seriously. Our board is dominated by independent directors. They're fiercely independent. Our chairman is independent. We have an independent chair. We only have 3 people from management on the board. Sahil, myself, and Kapil, our CTO. So it's really an independent board, and that drives governance. And if you look at if you go back and look at the names on our board, you'll see that they all individually are hallmarks of governance. And so when you bring them together, obviously that happens. And we'll continue to do what we do for the society. We will bring our capability to bear, like we did during the second wave when we had to do the stuff around concentrators from China and stuff like that. We feel there's a sense of responsibility we have. So we'll bring, wherever we can bring logistics to bear to help the society, we'll do that. And we often do that with like floods and stuff like that. I think, people often ask us, what are we doing with the drone program and stuff like that. Our idea of the whole drone program is actually really to focus on essentials and critical deliveries, and it's not something that we'll really focus on delivering iPhones to people's houses. I think that's not important. I think it's going to be more vaccines to remote areas, and so that's where the drone program is going to focus on. So we'll continue to do all that. But when you look at a logistics company, the E part becomes the most important because we're inherently a polluting industry. So what are we doing there?
I was just thinking, when are you going to come to that?
So, we are doing what we can. Some things we can do now, and some things we'll do in the future. What we can do now is how do we reduce fuel consumption per cubic feet that we move across the country. So we've been actively moving from 24 feet, 32 feet trucks to the 46 feet tractor trailers. Now, a few things happen there. We are moving our fleet, and we expect people working with us, our fleet partners, to move to Bharat 6 much faster than the market. So we're moving from Bharat 4 to Bharat 6. And we're moving to larger form factors. Now what that does is a larger form factor can carry 75% more load with only 25% more fuel. So inherently you're becoming more fuel efficient.
Yeah.
And it's Bharat 6, which means that the exhaust is treated to be less environmentally damaging, right?
Yeah.
Today 25% of our volume moves on that. By the end of this year, we hope 45 to 50% of volume will already move to that. Last year was even less, right? So we are actively moving a current trucking network to more fuel efficient, less polluting. That's one thing we are doing. We're experimenting with electric everywhere, but these are experiment stages. We yet to see what's going to happen with that. Will large form factor trucks really move to electric? Will they move to hydrogen? We are experimenting with LNG already. So those experiments are active. By virtue of who we are, all the large OEMs that actually want to do anything electric are already partnering with us somewhere. Whether it's two-wheeler, three-wheeler, small four-wheelers, across the board there's floating. On power, all the large mega hubs are becoming solar self-sufficient. Tauru in Bilaspur, which honestly we should have met there and we should do it another time. But Tauru in Bilaspur has 1 megawatt of power generation capacity. Its total consumption is 1.1 megawatt. Wow. And we generate 1. Of course, so efficiency will be at 75%, and at night you're not generating it. So during the day you're giving something back to the grid, and at night you're getting back. So, but if our requirement is 1.1, we're generating 1 megawatt or 0.75 megawatt. Calcutta already has 500 kilowatt of solar. We did a press release that we're building 1 million in Bangalore and 800,000 in Bhiwandi. They will come pre-fitted with solar. So we'll move all the large facilities to solar. So solar we will do. And we'll continue to partner with everybody to bring electric fleet as soon as we can. Electric, hydrogen, whatever it might be. That will happen. But in the meanwhile, we still can reduce fuel consumption. We still can reduce exhaustion by moving to these larger trucks and things like that, and we'll do that. We're reducing our carbon footprint as a company.
As a professional, as a leader, how do you deal with so much of expectation, so much, you are, running towards making, I read about the headlines that 25-30,000 crore hoga, ye hoga, wo hoga, bahut cheezein karni hoti hain. How do you process that internally as a leader to bring your best self every day?
I enjoy what I do, Shradha. That is the starting point. Nobody's forcing me to do this. It's my choice. I think it's important for people to realize that their professional decisions are their choices. So if it is not right for me and if it's too stressful for me, I have the option of saying thank you, this doesn't work for me. Chances are if it's too stressful for me, then I'm not the right person to be doing it as well. It's not good for me, and it's not good for the business. So for me, I think it's important for me to think about whether am I enjoying the moment? And if this is giving me satisfaction, I don't actually, and I'm not by any means trying to be greater than thou, and people should and profess to people that they should only think about this and not think about the rewards they get, any of that stuff. Everybody thinks about that, but it's not in the back of my mind. I've had the benefit in my life to have had a decent career, so I don't think about that as much as I think about how interesting this is, my job, and if I'm enjoying my life on a day-to-day basis. And it's like playing sport, and this is what I enjoy doing. So the stress of it is welcome. The challenge of going from 25,000 crores to 50,000 crores is welcome, because that's the challenge that I'm looking for. So I think that's one. I think the second one is that the people we have around ourselves. I think that makes a huge difference. You have to be able to enjoy your colleagues.
Yeah.
And because you spend more time with them than you do at home with your family. And if you can't enjoy your colleagues, of course we have arguments. Things always don't work out, and there will be times when I like to be perfect all the time in terms of how I want to communicate with people, but I might not.
Yeah.
And people might not with me as well, and we all have that. We have tempers fry every now and then. But on average, do we enjoy ourselves? We do, and when we win, we all feel excited about it. Yeah. So I think the small victories matter a lot to us. I think we laugh. We're serious, but we also laugh, and so it's a lifestyle. It's not a 9-to-5 job that I come and I'm gone and I've shut myself out. It's not that. People are answering emails during holidays. You're not expected to. You're doing it because you want to do it.
Yeah. It's a choice.
Yeah. Riddhi was away for 10 days for a holiday, but she was following up on stuff, right? Yeah. Because she wants to do it. Yeah. So I think for me, I think there's only one basic point, which is do it because you want to do it. It's a choice. Nobody is forcing you to do it. And then so don't put it on other people also. Put it on yourself. It's your responsibility. And once you know it's your choice, it's easy to deal with it.
And Sandeep, this one is for all the young people and everyone who's going to watch this is, I always think about this when I meet people, and I think about for myself also, is that how, I just have to say this, to me the most interesting people are people who work on themselves. I was just telling someone it's very amazing to see people who do inner work and a lot of work on themselves, because we always think that everything around us should change, but actually it is you. If you had to look back at your journey, your consulting days now here, and a phenomenal journey in the last 7 years over here, what are some of the things that you would say that you worked on yourself? Which maybe people watching would listen and say that, okay, maybe we could fast forward and learn this.
I know what I have not worked on.
Okay, tell me what you've not, now that you've said
no,
that.
I'm not sure. I want to let my secrets out.
Okay, that's for next one.
So I know what I still have to work on and what I have not worked on. What have I worked on? I don't think I've consciously focused on working on anything specific. I've generally learned from the experiences I've had. I think I have not been close to learning from anyone. And we
so
talked.
You're open to anyone and everyone who could.
Yes, yeah. The fact of the matter is that we've talked about the fact that I'm one of the older people in this organization, and I'm in a startup environment where the average age is much younger than people of my peer group in consulting, and you have to admire the ingenuity and the hard work and the creativity of young people, or the founders of Delhivery, or our entire senior team is actually, most people are in the late 30s, mid to late 30s, our entire senior team. And the stuff they deal with on a day-to-day basis, you have to learn from them. So I think I've been open to learning from everyone. The second thing I've been open to is there's no role within the company that I've said I don't want to do. So I've been open to doing many different things. I think those two things have been they've helped me to get better. But I don't think I've consciously gone out and say, okay, let me work at public speaking. Well,
I don't think so. You needed to do that. Okay.
No, but I'm saying it's not like, for example, it's not that.
It's
not that. I haven't gone and done that. Or let me go and work on Excel or whatever. So it's not any specific thing that I have to say I'm not an engineer by training. So I continue to get amazed by all the stuff that the engineers do. Sometimes I'm lost in the conversations that they have. So I defer to them. So yeah, I do trust. The other thing I do is I trust. So I trust another colleague of mine so I trust that the operations guys know what they're doing. I trust the sales team that reports to me. I trust that they're doing what they're supposed to do. I think that's important. I think you have to be able to trust.
Yeah.
Actually, oddly, you learn by trusting other people. So I trust. I don't understand it all. So
that's a huge. That would empower people around you, right?
Yeah, empowers you also, right? Because it frees up your time to do other stuff. Because otherwise, you will not. You can't create bandwidth if you don't trust.
Yeah.
So you're empowering others, but you are really helping yourself because you're creating your own bandwidth.
Yeah. So last, I would love to ask you. Now that you're here, and do tell me the numbers, because numbers you'll meet, I'm sure. But in your life at this stage, if you had to say that, okay, now I'm here, now I have accomplished all these things, this is one thing yet to do, what would that be? IPO भी हो गया, सब हो गया.
लेकिन मैंने ऐसी लिस्ट नहीं बनाई थी कि मुझे IPO करना है, माउंट एवरेस्ट क्लाइंब करना है, प्राग जाना है.
नहीं, मगर दुनिया के चेकलिस्ट से यही होता है ना कि अच्छा जॉब किया, कंपनी स्केल किया, everything, right? Like is going touch wood right, and it seems right from outside.
Maybe I've just been lucky, maybe I've just been at the right places at the right time and I've got lucky. I focus on the fact that I really enjoy my life in that sense, that I enjoy my work, as I said, I enjoy my colleagues. The successes are an outcome. I don't think I had them in any bucket list. So that's not important for me at all. That the outcomes, it's great to have them. I'm very grateful for the successes, and they motivate me to do more, but they're not a part of a bucket list.
It was not part of the plan.
Yeah. What is left to do? Again, I don't have a plan for that. Although it's interesting you asked that, because I think last time we talked about the fact that I always tell every incoming class of delivery, or every incoming batch, every orientation session, that make your 5-year goal, and then go back and revisit it every now and then and see whether you are on your path to that. And if you are, then you're doing well for yourself, and if you're doing well for yourself, you're doing well for the company. So do that. I last wrote my own 5-year plan as part of an assignment in business school. It's interesting now, in the first orientation session in business school, they made us write our obituary. And at the end, after 2 years on graduation, around that period, they made us reopen that obituary and edit it and see whether you actually. So actually, you have to go back and look at it. I'm sure, and it's not with me. You have to give it to another classmate of yours. I have somebody else's, and they have mine. I have to call that person up, and we have to go back and revisit our obituaries and see what is left to do. I'll come back to you and tell you what I've left to do.
So one more conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Sandeep. I'm looking forward to and holding you to this one. We'll begin the next conversation with this answer.